That's part of like what my mission is to just help educate people. I think that's how we're going to improve this trade. What I'm trying to help people through my content is that we as contractors, again, you've got to change your business. We got to slow down. And I get it. We can't take care of as many customers. So dump the crappy ones and take care of the good ones. The ones that are going to help you make money. I didn't have any of those tools at my disposal. It was years and years ago. And so they spent a couple of grand on some ductwork modifications. Didn't help. I was guessing.
I thought you were gonna.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say you fixed
it. No, it didn't.
Hola, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reliable HVACR podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed, like, comment, all that good stuff. If you guys are listening to this on the audio podcast, wherever you listen to it, please leave a review, get this show out to more people. And if you guys are watching and listening, I truly appreciate it. We would not be here without you. Now, on that point, the first sponsor of the podcast, my favorite CRM, Jobber. Now with Jobber, we can do professional invoicing and quoting, at its base, but it has so many more features. You can schedule, which we use for reoccurring maintenance. So every 6 months, this thing will remind the customer. There's so much more you can do to message customers, set up reminders, set up scheduling. You can do more with checking in and out. You have price lists. You have tons and tons of features. If you guys need help organizing your business and helping it run smoother, it's been night and day for us. We came from paper invoices. I looked at or into other softwares, and there's a lot of complaints on other ones. And one of the big ones is affordability. Now with Jobber, they have really great prices. I promise you, they have something for anybody starting and needs just the basics. And then as you grow, you can get into these much bigger plans, and it grows with your business. So if you guys are interested in looking more professional, being more organized, it helps me get these invoices and billing out much quicker. In turn, we get paid quicker. So if you guys are interested, I can get you a free trial and discount if you go to getjobber.com/reliable HVACR. And another sponsor of the channel now is VETO. VETO Pro Pack, hands down my favorite tool bags. Now, you guys have seen me rock a whole bunch of VETO bags, and I have nothing but good things to say. If you ever have any issues with them, they do have a 5-year warranty, but the quality is there. You're going to hear me say that a lot about VETO Pro Pack, is the quality, the different kinds of bags, and the thought process that goes into each of these bags. Now that I've seen how they design them and the stuff they're thinking of putting out, all the new stuff that comes out, like they really want to cover every aspect or every need of any technician across many different skill trades. Whether you're a tech that carries a laptop, you need a lot of power tools or a lot of hand tools, like they have a bag for you. Just some of the best bags I've ever had, because I used to rip a lot of the other brands you see at the supply houses or that were there forever. And now VETO Pro Pack, second to none, never had an issue. Go check them out. So on tonight's episode, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Tim Stasio. Now, he's among that group of really good educational content, like the HVAC school, the AC service tech, and then you have Tim, who does or specializes more in the airflow, air quality, and building science, HVAC science, all that stuff. So I'm personally looking into it for our house, the air quality, the proper sizing and design, all that. And this is somebody that I would trust because he tries to educate others on it. And he's been great. Talked to him a few times, and lots of he wants to help. So tonight we're going to have him on talking about the different things that he's done, going through his own thing of running a business, getting out of that, getting into the educational side, speaking, training, teaching, all that good stuff. And you can find Tim at Tim Stasio HVAC on YouTube, Instagram. I found him on LinkedIn. I'll leave all his socials where you can find him, contact him, take one of his classes, see him speak, all that. I will leave it in the description, the show notes, all that good stuff. Now enjoy the episode. All right, Tim, how are you? I know you're a busy guy right now.
Yeah, doing good. I just got back from the HVAC symposium, and that was just an awesome learning experience, and just connecting with people that are online, that make a lot of content, that teach and are passionate about high performance HVAC, better HVAC, and
Oh
there's some
yeah.
exciting things that came out of it. So yeah, it was a great trip down to Florida.
I know, and I think you went to the Atlanta AHR, but you didn't make it to this last one, right?
I didn't.
And
It
I missed
was.
you in Atlanta because I just started going to those too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That stinks. Well, next year it's in Orlando, and I will
Oh
be
yeah.
there in Orlando because the HVAC school symposium is also, it's going to piggyback either before or after. So
Yeah.
my wife and I are just going to travel down there and make a week out of it, vacation. But yeah, I went to Atlanta because I'm on the East Coast. I'm in coastal North Carolina, and I did not really have a warm and fuzzy about going up to Chicago in January.
Oh
And
no,
yeah,
nobody did.
yeah, and my dad had just gotten knee replacement surgery, and I actually ended up kind of going and helping him out right around the time when people would have been in Chicago and stuff. So it was just better that I didn't go this year. But next year
Yeah.
it's on for
That's
sure.
awesome. I just started going to those expos myself. It's always a good time in the beginning because I went to the Vegas one and then the Atlanta one with my brother. Like those were really cool. We tried
Yeah,
to walk the whole thing and take in everything that they had. And my brother was like super amazed at all the
yeah,
equipment, all the demos and everything.
yeah.
This last time I went by myself and I just went and like found everybody to catch up with
Yep,
and hang out with. That was more of the goal that I had this
yep.
time. And it was
It's a
super
great time
fun.
to get together and connect, but it is a heck of a show. I mean, to see all the new stuff coming out, and it's
Yeah.
impossible to see everything. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean
But
the good thing is there's social media, right? I get back and
yeah,
I see everybody posting what they found there, and
yeah.
sometimes I'm like, damn, I missed this or I missed that, but like it's cool to still see it online and all that.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
it's a good time, man. And then
It
like
is.
on my bucket list now is to do the symposium one because AHR is cool and all that, right? But
Yeah.
it's very hectic, very
Yep.
big, a lot of walking, this and that. I really think I'm gonna enjoy the more stripped down version of that at the symposium because you still have
Yes.
the companies that go out there and showcase stuff,
Yeah.
but then you're
Yep.
also like learning and taking these little basically classes, right? I
Yeah.
mean that's what you guys do up there.
Yeah. It is the best bang for the buck as far as training. You are learning from the best in the business when it comes to technical stuff about not only refrigeration, cooling, electrical controls, and even building science. And it's where a lot of the HVAC practitioners all congregate, and we converge on Orlando, Florida, or Claremont, Florida, once a year, and we have a great time. And it is pretty small. There's some vendors that show up and have a tent out there. And on the last day of it, it's open even for families to come in, and they've got
Okay.
all the vendors that come in. So it is a really cool thing. I think Brian Orr is talking about expanding it just next year because of the influx of people that will already be in town for AHR. Because the
Oh
thing
yeah.
about the symposium is it sells out quick now. I think tickets are going to go on sale in March, and as soon as
Okay.
they come out, get them because within a few months they were sold out. And the only
Oh
reason I
really?
waited, the only reason why I was able to attend in person, is that I was asked to be on a dehumidification panel from Santa Fe and Haven. Had an
Awesome.
indoor air quality panel, or else I would have been tying in virtually. I missed the boat. So lesson learned. I'm going to get them.
I
Next
didn't
year
even think
the
about
day
that
they come
because
out.
yeah, I didn't think about that because I bought the virtual ticket
Yeah,
and like last year too, and that's how I get to see what's going on, go check
yeah,
out my favorite instructors,
yeah, yeah.
and you got to speak on the panel, but you're up there too. You do a lot of educational content, just like Craig Migliaccio,
Yeah.
Ty Brenneman. Those are all my favorite people to learn from, including yours. It's just
Oh,
yours
thank
is
you.
like air quality design. Usually that's what you deal with, and that's really
Yeah,
cool because we'll get into that in a bit. That it's
yeah,
kind of a thing that should be pushed a little bit more, talked about a little bit more. It's not a lot of people know how to do all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, I'm passionate about it. I think everybody brings a different angle to it. I'm learning more about HVAC design and indoor air quality and building science diagnostics. And so that's what I'm shooting content about because I'm in it every day. But when I look back at my early content, 2017, 2018, a lot of it was just like, hey, I'm changing a compressor out today because that's what I was doing. But I don't run as
Yeah.
many of those calls. I miss it sometimes. But yeah.
Well, you had your own business for a while, right? But how did you? Well, let me go back a little bit further. How did you get into the trades? Find out about it? Because everybody's story is a little bit different. You know, some
Yeah.
people grow up around it. Some people fall into it.
Yeah. I got into HVAC my senior year of high school. The local community college and tech, there was like a little vocational school that partnered up with the high schools around the area, and they started offering HVAC. And so that was the first year. And so we show up on day one, and there's a bunch of equipment and ductwork and materials that are all on pallets. And our instructor was just like, all right, I'm going to teach you a little bit in the classroom, but then we're going to start building this lab. And so we were installing and learning hands-on from day one. And I just fell in love with it. I didn't know which direction I was going to go in my career. I knew that I did not want to go to a 4-year college just because even then my parents, I credit them for being forward thinking enough to see that that college sometimes is not the right path for somebody that doesn't want to go into student debt, that there was a tremendous demand even back in the late 90s for tradespeople. They saw the
Oh yeah.
writing on the wall and said, you can make a great living and not have any debt. And the other baggage that sometimes comes with college and that whole experience. So I credit them for that. They encouraged me to take either electronics or HVAC. I took both my senior year, and I loved both, but I saw a better future in HVAC. And
Yeah.
so that's what I did. And fortunately, I was able to apply a lot of my high school credits to the community college that was also partnering there. So I was able to get my associate's degree, my 2-year degree, pretty quick. And then I
Okay.
got a job at a big heavy commercial industrial company that was pretty well known in the area. So we're talking about
You
late
went
night,
straight into industrial.
went straight into industrial service. I mean, that's not a
Dang.
path most people take, but I tell you,
No.
it was a good path because um, it, it's very technical and you
Oh
learn a
yeah.
lot. And also, the great thing about industrial and commercial is you're not out there working for companies that maybe just want you to sell things. And so I just kind of learned that
Yeah.
we got to get this going. We got to, we've got to fix this. There's no replacing a 100-ton chiller. When
No.
it breaks, you've got to fix it. And so it just taught me a lot of mechanical skills, and it was great. Now, this is the late 90s, early 2000s. In North Carolina, textiles were starting to move away. And that was the bread and butter of this company was textiles, furniture, and tobacco. And all those things started to outsource, and these big textile mills started to close down. So I got a few years working on that stuff, really learning psychrometrics. When you're working on textiles, temperature and humidity is critical, and we were controlling that with pneumatic controls, so just air pressure, opening valves and turning on relays. So it was really cool. But that stuff kind of went away, and the company I worked for almost went out of business. 9/11 happened right around then. The economy kind of tanked for a few months, and I almost lost my job. A bunch of people got laid off there, but they kept me because I think maybe they were getting technician labor out of me, but paying apprentice wages. So they're like, we can't afford to fire this guy. So
Yeah.
I kept my job. Being underpaid actually helped me keep my job. Looking back, I'm like, I probably should have, made some other career moves, but I stuck with that company for 12 years. They
Well,
got
it
into
depends,
data.
right? Because like you can go and look for more money, or if you're getting good experience or getting that under your belt,
Yeah,
then maybe sometimes you're going to be underpaid for a while and then
right,
move on
right.
later.
And that was me. And so, but I kind of worked my way up the ranks, and They started getting into more data centers and pharmaceuticals. They transitioned to that, and I started learning on Liebert units. I got certified on the Liebert ICOM units, which were like the newest technology back in 2005, and it were great, cool little units. And I started doing a lot of that. But towards around 2010, I decided, I think I want to get my contractor's license. Not that I'm ever going to leave this company, but if I ever wanted to become like a project manager or move up in this company, I think contractor's license, my North Carolina heating license would go a long way. So
So
I
you had no intention of running, leaving, and doing your own thing. You just wanted to get
not
it
at
in
first.
case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my dad encouraged me. He was like, "Yeah, just get licensed. It'll make you more valuable." And so I did. And while I was taking prep classes, and this was my first introduction to residential design and manual J and duct design, because we had engineers that did all that kind of stuff. I
Oh,
just fixed it when it broke.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, I started learning this whole other facet of HVAC, which was design and taking into account the building envelope and building science. And I was like, man, this is really cool. I've never even realized this was out there. And that's what started getting me hungry for. I think I could build a business that I could do HVAC and building science and incorporate this design. And I think there are people out there that need a residential HVAC guy like that. And I've got all this industrial experience. I was working on VRFs and zoning systems back 20 years ago, before that stuff really took off in residential. So I understood the concepts, and I just started getting this hunger. And so I eventually turned in my notice after I got licensed and started my
Yeah.
own business. And I ran that business for 12 years, and I ran it looking for people that are in the home weatherization, building performance, building science, home performance field. Anybody that was doing that stuff, I became their HVAC guy that spoke their language, that understood and was passionate about improving the building envelope, that wasn't just about selling a new unit. And I built a business like that. And I still did commercial and industrial. A bunch of my industrial customers followed me along. So I was doing
Okay.
residential, commercial, and industrial, and trying to find a business model that worked for that. And I was doing new
So, but
construction.
you got into the business. I mean, the designing and all that, or did you do service or anything
Yeah,
else?
we did anything from residential. We had
Everything.
service contracts. That's what made my business valuable enough to sell it down the road, is I had a bunch of service contracts. But I had agreements with my industrial customers. I was taking care of low temperature chillers, process chillers, data rooms, and I built the business doing all three.
Oh, dang.
And we even did residential new construction just because it was Energy Star, and I could kind of nerd out on the design. And so we did a little bit of everything. It was a hard business model. I mean, how do you run something
Yeah.
that's doing all three?
Oh, yeah.
And uh, and so yeah, in 2021, as you can probably imagine, I was starting to get kind of burned out. We're into the pandemic, and I got to tell you, it was not like a magical journey. It was very difficult. I had some years I was not very profitable because I didn't really know how to run a business. I didn't charge enough for a long time. And
Yeah, it's
I
a big
also,
one.
and everything funneled down to me. I mean, I never, no one really rose up in my company that I could really call, okay, this is going to be my second in charge. And so it was just, it really got a lot on me. My physical health was suffering, my mental health, pandemic, trying to navigate as a business owner through that, and all the laws and the personal preferences, and this customer wants you to wear a mask and this customer doesn't, and this
Oh, yeah.
employee does, and just all that stuff. And eventually I woke up one day and I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't want to run a company. I love HVAC and I love building performance and all this stuff, but I'm not doing any of it. All I'm doing is babysitting people and going back behind them and doing warranty work, because I don't even have enough time to, like, we weren't even doing good quality work at that point. And so 2020
How
was a
big
bad
was
year.
your company?
It wasn't even that big. I had 9 employees at one point, or
Oh,
including me,
okay.
9 employees.
Well, we
So
had something similar because we grew to, like, I want to say around 8,
yeah,
and the quality control just went to shit. Like, I couldn't keep up with,
right.
like you said, the callbacks or anything like that.
Yep.
And then we had to downsize to basically 4 now, and we're
Yep.
way better off.
That's exactly what I did. So I
Yeah.
had a really good 2021 because I laid all those guys off that were doing the bad work. I kept my
Mhm.
best people. And I also stopped doing residential new construction. And if we had to
Okay.
change out, we would run it from at a service. I would grab one of my techs and we'd go put a unit in. And we started to get more profitable. Callbacks went down. I mean, it was 2021 was a great year, but I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I was like, I think I've got the business to a point where I just want to see what it's worth, because I don't know if I want to keep doing this. So I thought about it a lot, prayed about it, and I got contacted just out of the blue by somebody who was local, that special a business broker. They specialize in selling businesses, and I've been contacted by those people in the past, and they always seem kind of scammy. It's like, yeah, pay us
Yeah.
$10,000 and we might find you a buyer. This was
Yeah.
legit. She was out of Raleigh, which is about an hour away, and so I just she only charged me a certain amount to value my business, and the deal was like, we will find you a buyer. You will get at least this amount of money for your business. If you don't, you don't owe us anything. But if you do, then we take a certain percentage, and it was a very reasonable percentage. And so I said, yeah, let's just see where this goes. And very quickly, we found a buyer. And within about, it's still not a quick process. Like from the whole
Oh, okay.
period of her contacting me and us selling the business was almost a year. But I was able to sell the business and worked for the new company who pretty much absorbed us, and worked for them for a year. And when
Okay.
that year contract was over, that was part of the contract. Then I moved away from my home of 43 years, born and raised in Greensboro, and I moved here to the North Carolina coast and built a house. And now I've opened up a more of a consulting business,
Yeah.
design. I do some contracting. I've got a truck. I got contactors and capacitors and a jug of R410A in there. I mean, that's quick money. I'll still run those service calls
Oh,
all day
yeah.
long. But I really enjoy doing design work, consulting, doing some teaching. I've taught some online classes, some in-person classes, and
I
helping
know
other
I was
companies.
upset that I missed one. I waited
Oh
too
yeah,
long, and you had that. I think it was like the design or the manual, one of the manuals, manual J or something.
I've done manual J and D, but I'm thinking about doing it again. So I will definitely let you know
Okay.
here in a few weeks. But yeah, I've done that, and really just helping companies that are up and coming that just need an industry expert, knowledgeable person to help them along.
Yeah.
I've helped Haven along, Haven
Oh, yeah.
IEQ, Conduit Tech. They're a brand new company that you can do a load calculation. Instead of measuring the house, you scan the rooms with your iPad. It measures the house for you, and it spits out a load calculation. I've been helping them, and just good players
I
in the
think I need
industry.
that.
Well, we will talk.
Okay,
I'll
because
tell you whatever you want to know about it, but they're a great company.
that's an issue here big time where
Yeah,
stuff's not sized right, and I'm
right.
running into it a lot in commercial too. And it's crazy the stuff that you find, and it's like this
Yeah,
none of this makes sense if you actually do your calculations and figure out everything. And it's like, who put this in here, or why did they do this, or why did they do
yeah.
that? I mean, it's a big issue.
Unfortunately, we have a lot of old school mentality. We're just people that didn't know any better. They were never trained. That the bigger the unit, the more likely it is to cool the house on a hot
Dude,
day.
I had one recently where I was telling them like we need to kind of do the whole calculation, kind of figure it
Hmm.
out. Although I'm not that good at it, I'm rusty with it because I did go to school for all that. And I was like, it's just gonna take me a little while. I got to figure it out. And then like some other company came in. It's like, we'll just put in another unit next to this one because it was a commercial building, but they had residential split systems,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So they were like, we'll just add another one next to the other two, and then it'll cool, right? And I'm like, that's not how it works, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy, and so that's kind of
And
part of
I
what my
think they got
mission.
the bid. I think they did it. I haven't gone back.
Yeah, yeah. It stinks, and that happens all the time. That's part of like what my mission is to just help educate people. I think that's how we're going to improve this trade. I don't think we're going to improve it by more enforcement or by higher standards. We already have pretty high standards. They're pretty good. I'm not talking about codes. Codes are still pretty decent, but we have industry standards from ACA and ASHRAE,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's a thing of how do we get people to just take more pride in their work? And I think the movement that is going to change that is exactly what people like you're doing, especially these young guys that are getting involved and they're posting their installs and they're trying to get better because they want to be appreciated and respected
Mhm.
by their community. Those are the people who are going to change this industry because they're not
It's
going to listen.
crazy. It's crazy because like even well for myself when I started posting content, it made me a little more conscious about how I'm doing things.
Right.
Did I do that? Did I do that right? Did I do it
Did it?
by the specs and
Yeah.
everything? But then also this, like you said, this movement of younger guys coming in and they want to show what they can do or kind of like
Yes.
improve on every install or whatever it
Yep.
is. But that's a little like friendly competition because then it's like, well, if he's doing that, then I got to do better. And
Right. Step my game
it's
up.
really cool. It's really cool to see all that.
Yeah, and so we take that, we can continue it on when these guys go from being employees to contractors themselves, like
Oh
you, and
yeah.
they're running their own business. And now we can apply that same passion for just doing good design, not oversizing equipment, ethical sales, applying science to indoor air quality solutions. Let's just keep that going. It doesn't have to stop at the install. Let's keep that going. Just doing good quality
Oh yeah.
design work also, and so everybody plays a part in it. And I'm just excited to see a lot of the people that are involved in the last 6-7 years, social media. I think that's how this industry is going to improve. I don't have a lot of faith in like the old guard because unfortunately, I don't think they realize they have a problem. And so, it's like I reach out to business owners all the time offering my training services, and they're like, no, I'm good. I'm like, no, you're not. I saw your sticker on it the other day.
Oh, that's the
And no,
worst,
you need
right?
a lot
Because
of
like
training.
that's the worst when they kind of like they're kind of proud of it, and then you're like,
Yeah.
that wasn't done right,
Yeah.
or something's off. But you see
Right.
their sticker on there.
Yeah.
But that's crazy. Like I would love because I go to a lot of the local trainings that I can on stuff that I work on. Right.
Uh-huh.
I want to know how this works or how to service a brand new model or something like ice
Yeah.
machines, whatever.
Right.
Because I do more refrigeration stuff,
Okay.
and even that stuff has to be serviced a certain way, cleaned a certain way, handled a certain way. Like it's just training is good for everybody.
Yeah.
It's crazy that they're like, no, we're good. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's an epidemic of this industry. So I think it's education for those who want to be better and improve. Education is the only way that we get better. I don't think we do it by enforcement or raising the standards that are already. We're not even reaching the standards that are out there. Raising standards is not going to help, and people will find a way to bypass it. They always have. But so yeah, it's an exciting time to be in it.
So as far as like like you said, you got to speak at the symposium on.
Yeah.
You said it was like air quality panel or something.
There's two panels. There was an indoor air quality panel talking about the sick home syndrome. That was hosted by Kevin Hart, the Canadian, not the comedian.
Yeah.
He's he's the CEO of Haven. And also we had a dehumidification panel, which just talked about best practices on making dehumidification solutions work and what to do, what not to do, how to size dehumidifiers, that sort of thing. So it was an
Those
honor.
are two big problems for sure. I
Yeah.
will say on the first one you mentioned about the what was it called again? You said
Haven, the sick building syndrome, indoor air
sick
quality.
building.
Yeah.
Yes, because that has to deal with like chemicals and different things in the house, right?
Yeah, chemicals, even things that people and animals produce, and dust and other particulates. I can riff on that a little bit. Just kind of give a
Yeah,
3 minute.
because I'm just gonna give you like what I've
Yeah.
seen because
Okay.
like well I don't deal with residential, so I don't see it
Okay.
myself firsthand. But Curtis, who I do the other group HVAC nights with,
Hmm.
he's had a video or he's talked about it where he had to go service a home and he deals with a lot of residential, so
Hmm.
he sees it all. There was one that the homeowner was obsessed with candles, and that whole furnace was filled with like soot and like all this stuff, and he had to show it to them, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna get rid of my candles, but just get it working,
Okay.
right?
Nice
And
knowing you.
And it's like, man, that what that does to a system, can you imagine what that does to the person?
Yeah.
So, I mean, go ahead if you want to.
Candles are really bad, burning incense and all that stuff. But essentially, when it comes to indoor air quality, a great way to understand it is there's three things that we are trying to control, and that's particulate matter, which is dust, pet dander, and a lot of it's dead skin. It's pretty nasty. We try to control chemicals, so that's things like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide,
And
and
I will
even
say the whole pet dander thing, I'm new to that because where I'm at now, there is a cat indoors. My
yeah,
dog also
yep.
comes in and out. My son just uh got, or I don't know what you would call it. He just started being allergic to cats.
Hmm.
So now I got to deal with
Yeah,
that right now. I'm trying to think like what's the best way to get our air quality up because of him, you know?
yeah. Um, some of the best things to do from a homeowner standpoint is just encourage them to vacuum as often as possible.
Oh yeah, we do that
Dust,
now.
yeah, and then also from an HVAC standpoint, um, just better filtration. And obviously, I think
Hmm.
we all know at this point that we just can't stick a MERV 13 in where a 1 inch filter used to go without evaluating the ducts.
Oh
And
yeah.
so when you've got a filter that is too small, because now with MERV 13, we've increased the pressure drop, even if it's a pleated filter. If the velocity of that air increases, which is a problem, then you're not really getting MERV 13 out of it. So what ends up happening is you bought a MERV 13, but you're probably, who knows, you're getting MERV 6, 7, 8 out of it. And your system is struggling because of the pressure drop and the amount of either if it's a PSC motor, then you're not getting good airflow. If it's
Yeah.
an ECM motor, then it's going to give you the airflow, but it's going to die
Yeah.
trying. And so what my suggestion is, if especially with multiple returns, try doing that, or just put an essential media filter, MERV
Oh yeah.
13, and then just make sure things like your ducts are sealed. Your return duct, if it's in an attic and it's not sealed well, it's pulling in all kinds of stuff we don't want. Not only
Hmm.
pollutants, but humidity, heat's making your unit run longer. But this time of year, especially during shoulder seasons, as we start getting into spring, if our system isn't coming on that much because there's no heat or cooling demand, then that air filter that acts like the vacuum cleaner of our house is not working. And so having
Oh
a
yeah.
control in there like Haven, I mean Haven will circulate air every so often. It'll monitor particulates. And so, like if I was running a service call on a family that had the same issues as that, Haven is going in, and then we're going to do visual inspections and we're going to check a lot of things. But I'm going to monitor the air quality through the Haven for a couple of weeks, and we're going to figure out when it spikes, what happens, when it happens, how bad it happens, and then offer solutions based on science instead of the other way that we all know isn't exactly ethical. But the
The
Haven,
the
I think,
old
is
the old rule of thumb.
yeah, old rule of thumb, or here is this magic box with a blue light. And I don't know how it works, but the guy at the supply house told me it'll kill everything from pet dander to coronavirus.
So you
And
don't believe in that one.
they have their place and they work, and I
Oh.
could go off on that too. But there's two things that I think is a problem with that. It's a very poorly regulated industry. So
Oh
when
yeah.
the FDA has to approve a medical any medical claim about a pill, FDA has to approve it before it becomes commercial. There's no
Hmm.
FDA for that stuff, and so they
Oh,
can
that's
make
true.
claims that it kills all this stuff. And they who knows how they're testing it? They're testing in a small lab, where of course with the small lab, of course, this thing is going to be more effective than a big house with poor airflow and air stagnation. And then the second thing is the byproducts that comes off of changing the chemistry in our house, because our home unfortunately is a chemistry lab. We've got people living in it, cleaning materials, we're cooking in it. It is a
Oh
chemistry
yeah.
experiment. And when we start changing the chemistry, which is what a lot of these air purifiers do, ionization, oxidation, adding hydrogen peroxide to it, if you hear any of those terms, photocatalytic, any of that stuff, just think of it as changing chemistry. And you're not a chemist, I'm not a chemist, but what ends up happening is we can solve some certain problems. We can turn some really bad stuff neutral, but then we can also inadvertently turn some neutral stuff bad. And one
Hmm.
example is those things can interact with like the type of cleaning sprays and stuff that has this lemon scented,
Yeah.
that can react to that and actually cause formaldehyde in the wrong circumstances. So
Oh
congratulations,
wow.
you fixed one problem, but then you added a carcinogen into your customer's airstream. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
that
something.
education that I'm trying to get out there.
Yeah, and that's something that John Pastorolo had mentioned to me
Yep.
when I had him on here about be cautious with, because he deals with the cleaning products, right? So he's
Yes.
like, be cautious of anything that has a scent, because then
Right.
you're dealing with other
Yeah.
chemicals, other off what do you call it, off products, that
Off
stuff.
gassing. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff happens with the more that, I mean, it might
Right.
smell nice when you first
Yep.
use it, but then you're causing something else.
Yeah. So the best solutions are passive solutions. So it's better filtration. It's
Yeah.
source control, fixing the leaks in the house, leaks in the ductwork. It's humidity control because that kind of stuff thrives, especially the biological pollutants that we have, funguses and bacterias and mold and all that stuff. They thrive outside of a safe range of humidity. So humidity control,
Oh yeah.
those passive ways are the best things to do. Ventilation, bring in fresh air from the outside as long as it's fresh, and
Mhm.
diluting. The solution to the pollution is dilution. So you're just like if someone farts in the car, what do? You roll down the window, right?
Yeah.
Well, that is the same principle with ventilating a house, is to just dilute what we're creating in there and replace it with some fresh air. Unfortunately, we have to also filter that air, condition that air, cool it,
Mhm.
dehumidify before we bring it into a house, or else we create other problems. But those are the passive ways that we fix indoor air quality. I'm not a fan of changing chemistry. Now, I've put those units in, but it's only as a
Yeah.
cherry on top after I've already improved their filtration, their ventilation, and their humidity control. Then, sort of as a maintenance, or if they really want one of those devices, I'll put one in. But I don't lead with that, and I don't view
Yeah,
that as like
it's
the
not like a
solution.
solve all problem. You got to fix everything else first.
Exactly. Yeah, it's sort of like
And
if you have high blood pressure, and what kind of doctor, and there's plenty of them out there, but we know what we
yeah,
think about them. What kind of doctor is going to skip over the whole diet and exercise thing and go straight to starting to prescribe to you pharmaceuticals? It is exactly the same thing in our situation. We skip a lot of times right over the passive ways and the diet and exercise of indoor air quality, and because the distributor, the our boss gives us a spiff when we sell an air purifier, we're tempted to do that. But we're just like that doctor that's pushing pills because he gets a kickback, and I think that's wrong.
yeah, I was gonna say that was a good business after COVID. That whole
It was.
thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
the so you've been working with Haven Pro.
Yeah.
I've seen you pop up
Hmm.
on their feed before.
Yeah.
Is that like a monitor device, or what is that they deal with? Because
Yeah.
I've talked to them. I've just never looked into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Haven is an induct air quality monitor. It monitors your particulate matter, which is your dust, pet dander. It also monitors total VOCs. VOCs are the chemicals, the stuff in the candles, the cleaning
Oh yeah.
materials. Even humans put out VOCs. When we cook, we create VOCs. They're not all bad, but you
Hmm.
know, too much of anything is not a good thing. So it monitors that, and it also monitors temperature, humidity, and it can tell when you've got good airflow, when your airflow cuts off. So it kind of knows when your unit's running and when it's not. And it connects to an app. And the cool thing about Haven is, first of all, it's duct mounted. So it's the only
Yeah.
product that I'm aware of that is not a room monitor, but is a duct monitor. So it averages your whole house instead of having one device in one room, and it has no idea what's going on way over here. So it's a duct mounted, but it also, within their app, within the Haven environment, they have a controller. And that controller is just, think of it as a Wi-Fi relay. It's a 2 relay pack, and you can make it turn on the dehumidifier, fresh air. You can wire a couple of them together to do a lot of advanced automations, and they're constantly creating new solutions. And so
Okay.
one of the solutions that we use a lot here is a ventilating dehumidifier. So it's a dehumidifier from Santa Fe that I use, but we bring in fresh air, but we bring it in through a motorized damper. And the Haven only opens up that damper when we need fresh air, because there's no reason to bring in heat and humidity from the outside and have to deal with that and get that energy penalty if we don't have to. So if you go on vacation for 2 weeks, you don't need to ventilate your house. So Haven is smart enough to see that. And then it also will cycle on your air handler in some circumstances to cut the particulate matter down. So if you get a spike in dust, it's going to say, okay, we need to run some of this dust through the filter and catch it. It'll do that. And then the Haven can also read temperature and humidity. So we can actually turn on and off our dehumidifier doing that.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of customizable things, and they're coming out with some really cool stuff in the next few months. So I just encourage anybody that's in the residential space to look it up, because it is it's the responsible way to deal with indoor air quality. And
Yeah, man, I'm gonna have to take some notes right now on some stuff that I need to put in our house.
Yeah,
That
I'll be
sounds like a
happy to
good
talk
one.
with you offline too and give you some suggestions. That's not a problem.
Yeah, it sounds like a good one to have, man, because you never know what's going on. I mean, you can't see it. You need to monitor it in a certain way like that. And that's kind of cool. You can use your app, check out your air quality and all that. And like you
and I
said, it does
monitor
a
some
whole
of my
bunch more.
customers. Yeah, I'll monitor some of my customers like once a month, and I'll look for little anomalies, and then
Oh, okay.
it could drive all further sales. Like, hey, I noticed that you keep having a problem with your particulate matter going up. Remember we talked about that MERV 13 filter? Well, here's the proof. And now we're solving the problem that they have before they even realize how bad it is, but we can show them proof that it is a problem. That to me is responsible and ethical.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a good way of going about it, because you're not trying to push them on something. It's like, no, here's what we found.
Yep.
It's facts, and then here's how to solve that.
Exactly. Yeah, we're solving it with science and methods instead of with products. And so again, I'm just trying to raise awareness of this. And I also want to say, I know a lot of people listen to your show that listen to me. They're in the residential space. They work for an employer.
Mhm.
They are pushing that stuff. And I get it. I'm not trying to vilify the technician. But there is something to be said, is once you become educated, you can't unring that bell. And so I hear you that there are people out there that are like, look, I just work for a company. They want me to sell these things. That's fine. But once you learn that that is not exactly ethical, what do you do with that information? Are you going to stay working there, or are you going to look for a different opportunity? And so I just encourage everybody, just get educated, make your own decisions, make your own choices. And ignorance is bliss. And once you start acquiring some knowledge, you've got to do something about it. I mean, you've just got to. So for what it's worth, just get educated, people.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that's the most important part, is like actually going out and getting the knowledge and learning the right way to do things, or how things work. And it opens up your eyes to a lot of different situations that you've been in or that you see.
Right. It's just like people, when I first came into the business, no one pulled a 500 micron vacuum. It was 2 smokes and a cup of coffee. But we get educated.
I remember when I started, I knew because of the school that I went to. I went to a community college when I started, but it's very different. I got out into the field, and they're like, "What's a micron gauge?" We don't, dumping
Cut it
in.
on. Let's go to lunch.
Yeah, man, it was totally different. I had to that's kind of like piggybacking off of what you said, is like, what are you going to do with the knowledge, right?
Yeah.
I knew better because I went to school, right? Some people weren't even pulling vacuums out there.
Right.
And then you have these problems later on. So I was like, no, like, I know there's an easy way to do this, but I'm going to pull a vacuum, use my micron gauge, make sure I read it, I set it up the right way. And there's been plenty of times like purging nitrogen was not a thing either. Like there's plenty of things that were wrong with the industry when you get out there because of old habits and stuff that people didn't know. But if you know, do it the right way, or do it the way that you know is better.
And if you don't, then you're a hack.
Yeah, and I got a lot of pushback. I'll be honest, because like when I was out there, and it's all like, I mean, I went to school when I was like 20. So like when I got out there, I was like 22.
Yeah.
They're not going to listen to a 22-year-old telling them what to do, right? It's all older guys, and they're supposed to be above you, and you're like, oh, you're not doing it the right way. It's a lot of pushback, but like I was very stubborn that I wanted to do it. I'm like, if it's my call, if I'm on the job, I'm doing it this way.
Right.
There's no way around it.
Same way. But and it's nothing different as we advance in our knowledge. We move on. Okay, well we've figured out purging with nitrogen and vacuums, but now what else have we learned? We've learned beer can cold isn't how you diagnose the system. And once you learn about superheat, subcooling, and all the stuff that Measure Quick talks about, then if you go back to beer can cold, well, you can't claim that, well, I just didn't know any
Yeah.
better. No, you chose to be a hack at this point. And the same
Yeah,
thing with indoor air
that was,
quality and building science.
oh yeah, and that was the thing too. When I started, it was like I'm helping out guys that I'm working with because, like I said, I went to school and I kind of knew some
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm trying to explain to them superheat and subcool, right? And I'm like, I need to know this or that
Hmm.
because we would be bouncing off each other, like what's wrong with the unit, and then they're like, no, just tell me what the pressure should be, and I'm like, no, like
Yeah.
temperatures, subcool, so superheat.
Yep.
Let's figure all that out first, and then like we'll go from there.
Yeah. I used to
It's
tell my
crazy.
guys that work for me, is like, I don't lead with my pressures are when you come with me with a
Yeah.
problem. And so I started teaching them how to diagnose without even using pressures. If we absolutely
Oh
must
yeah.
gauge up and check pressures, and I understand refrigeration is a little bit different, but with comfort cooling, if we absolutely must gauge up, and we don't always have to gauge up, but if we absolutely must, let's not talk in terms of pressure. Let's talk about terms of saturation temperature,
Hmm.
because everything else we talk about is in terms of temperature, not pressure. What's our return air, supply air, temperature difference, superheat, subcool, and suction line temperature, liquid line temperature? Everything's temperature based. And so if we can just convert that one pressure into saturation temperature, everything else, and you can work on any refrigerant at this point because the
Yeah.
pressure is going to be different, but the saturation temperatures are going to stay mostly the same in comfort cooling. And so those
Yeah.
are just good habits to get into.
Yeah, that was the thing too, because my dad had a business and I started the HVAC side of it, and then we hired people and other guys came on,
Hmm.
and I was the young guy that was like, well, I need to kind of train them the way I know how to do things and all
Yeah.
that. So like this the same I had the same situation where it's like, guys, stop looking at the pressure. I need
Yep.
the saturated, all
Yep.
that. And then I've been trying to get more into, like, I didn't know any better before either about hooking up, and if you're going to hook up to a system every time, like, you're going to lose a little bit of that charge. And like in
Yeah.
refrigeration, it's a lot of critically charged
Yeah.
units, ice machines, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So over time I've gotten more into the, what is it called, the non-invasive.
Non-invasive system
uh,
testing. Yeah.
yeah, and I've been more intrigued by that now. It's like, do not gauge up, right? Check
Yep.
your line temp, all this
Yep.
other stuff,
This
and
is
you'll
the
figure
way.
out, most of the time you'll figure out what's wrong with it by just by that.
Yeah. Non-invasive system testing has been around for a long time. I remember seeing YouTube videos from 2005. Um, well, they were dated 2005. I don't think YouTube was around 2005, but it was a archive videos that Jim Bergman was making back in 2005, 2006. And he was telling us about measuring the suction line temperature versus the return air temperature. And we call that a design temperature difference. An evaporator split is another term for that. But essentially, no matter where that system is, how hot or how cool it is in the house, your return air temperature minus your suction line temperature will always be somewhere between 30 and 40 degrees. 35 is the sort of the average. And if it's not, then you can pretty much tell that something's wrong with that evaporator. So
Oh yeah.
if you just use beer can cold and you're like, suction line's warm, I got to add gas. Well, it might not be low in gas. It could be liquid line restriction that's starving your evaporator, or it just could be like 85 degrees in the house. Maybe your return duct in the attic
Yeah,
fell off.
that's something that I had to deal with too, right? It's like, and I had
Yeah,
those instincts too, right? Just like,
yeah,
oh, just top it off, or do this
yeah.
or do that. That's always going to solve it. But no, it's like, you might have a warm box, you might have,
Yeah. Hot
like you
cold down
said,
is a big deal.
yeah, you might have, your airflow is another big one, right?
Yep.
I have one right
Yeah.
now that the evaporator's all screwed up and it's
Yeah.
showing me low pressures, but I'm like, we're not low on charge necessarily, right? It's just,
Hmm.
if you don't have airflow, your temperatures go
Yep.
up or down. And yeah, that's one of the, like I said, one of the things I struggled with when I started, because everybody's like, oh, just put in some Freon, put in,
Yep.
do this or that. And Then you start overcharging systems, and it's like, holy crap, right? When it gets hot out, like those things with
Oh yeah.
high head pressure.
Oh yeah. Or overcharging heat pumps in wintertime, then you go back and things tripping off on, on head pressure. Um, and that's why it's just trying to create good habits and
Hmm.
educate people when they're young. And I'm a proponent of Measure Quick because it can
I was
it
about to
takes
ask you
all that
about that.
data in there. Yeah. And I get it. Measure Quick pissed everybody off last year when they took away screenshots. I get it. Even they'll tell you they kind of botched that. I understand why they did it. But
Hey, I just wanted to do it for my content. I was trying to show the viewers what I had, and I got the
yeah,
alert, and I'm like, okay, I can't do
I
that anymore.
know. Me too, dude. I mean,
But
same thing.
I'll do you one better. I bought an iPad, and now I just take a picture of
Yeah,
the iPad. I got it.
there you go. I mean, and they'll tell you, look, that's all you gotta do if you really want your screenshot that bad. But and so I get it, but here's what Measure Quick is doing. They are helping to solve the labor shortage that we're going to have. I mean, you're a contractor, you're an employer, you already know we cannot get butts and trucks to save our lives. I mean, especially
It's so hard to find good
talent.
help.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what do we do about it? And what's cool about Measure Quick is it's technology. And what they have been working with contractors around the country, but one in particular is in Ohio. It's right there next door with them, and it's sort of like a test program. But there's a company called Simpson Salute, and it's owned by a really cool dude, Chad Simpson. He's a pilot, so he's very process driven. You know, pilots when they got checklists. Then before they fly the airplane, they're going down that checklist. It doesn't matter what's raining or snowing; they're going to do that checklist. But if we take that same approach to HVAC, what MeasureQuick is doing is helping people to pull people that are coming out of other technical sectors like appliance repair, copy machine repair. I mean, copy machines are going by the way of paper. With less paper, there's less copiers. But there are people there that are trained in technology and they're wrench turners and they're looking to change their careers. They don't know anything about heating and air, and that's okay. People that are
Yeah.
coming from communications and other technical sectors. And if we can train them on an app from scratch before they learn beer can cold and all those bad habits, if we can help them to use the app and give them some specialized HVAC training, then are they going to instantly become a craftsman installer? No. Are they instantly going to be a repair technician that can change a compressor under the worst circumstances? No. But they will be able to diagnose systems and they will be able to start up and commission new systems. And if we can decouple those roles and give them to people that are coming into the industry that are already proven good workers, no technology, then we don't need our crusty old repair technician who's really good with his hands. We don't really need him to start doing system startup and commissioning anymore. We can make maintenance techs out of these people within just a few weeks. Maintenance techs. Now, they're
Oh,
not
yeah.
going to be able to diagnose VRF. We're not asking them to do that right now, but they can take a huge section of our workload off of our hands. We can still have installers, and installers are a different breed. Don't give those guys an iPad because they're just going to usually use it as like a doorstop or something.
Yeah.
Like, installers for the most part are a different breed. But if we can decouple that and we don't ask them to start up and do a full commission after a 12-hour day in an attic, we send somebody else in there to do that, and we just let them do what they're good at, and we start creating roles for different technicians and different people, and we're pulling people that are already workers and in technology. And I think MeasureQuick has the potential to do that. But as a contractor, as a business owner, you've got to be prepared to make some changes in your company. There's no sort of dipping your toe into MeasureQuick.
Oh yeah, and that helps because like with our company, like I said, we're very small. It's like me and my brother, my dad, and his brother, and right now our helper is on part-time. Maintenance has been a big thing for us recently, and it's like I dread it because I do other calls all the time. I do I mean, summer's coming up. We're gonna be getting busy again, but my brother goes into more of the maintenance role, and that relieved a lot off of me.
Yes.
And he's okay. He's okay with it. Like you said, there's different breeds for different things.
Yeah,
he's very good at that. He's very meticulous with his checklist, his cleaning, all that stuff that he does. and that just helps a lot. I can go and do my service. I prefer to do service.
Right.
We have guys that do certain things, and it helps the company out
Yeah.
overall.
Yep.
And I do think that Measure Quick, I know some people swear by it. I haven't used it too much. I think it is laid out very nice. And that does help, like you said, somebody that's learning it, getting trained. Measure Quick is very visual. I know a lot of us are very visual too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
nice, and it does everything for you if you put all the information into it.
Yeah, it is. And so we can start training people to be process driven, and that when they go up to a system, they set it up in MeasureQuick the same way every time. They deploy their pros the same way every time. And I know there's a little bit of pushback because, like, well, you're not really creating HVAC techs out of them. You're just kind of creating robots. But here's the deal. We need butts and trucks. Okay. Maybe we need a few robots early on, and then we can turn them into the super techs later on. But right now, we need exactly what you're talking about.
The more they see it, they're gonna get it. They're gonna get it.
Yeah, because not every system. I mean, the whole point of MeasureQuick is to find faults, legitimate faults. So they're going to hook up their probes, and MeasureQuick's going to be throwing all kinds of flags at them, and they're not going to know what to do because they've only been in HVAC for 6 weeks, and this is their first call, and that's okay. But now they can share their screen. There's a way that you can do a remote look in with MeasureQuick, and so now the person that is maybe you in the company that is the technical person can help them out only when needed. But all the other times they're doing maintenance, they're checking the system out that you guys installed last year. Of course, it's running good. It's working good. He cleans it. Go on. You just got to satisfy your contract, but you don't have to be there. And then, of course, you have a report that is a third-party report. There is very little doctoring that you can do with MeasureQuick. And even if you do doctor it, it puts a little mark next to the thing so the boss knows, oh, wait a minute, that's not a real number. So there is a way to kind of game it a little bit, but we're going to know if you game it. And I just think once MeasureQuick catches on a little bit more and it becomes a little bit easier to use, and then it's going to be the way that we help solve the lack of good help that we have right now, and they're committed to it.
Yeah, I think they're doing a lot. I mean, it's good. Not everybody. Well, like I said, some people swear by it. Not everybody uses it. It's coming around, I think.
Yeah.
Are you helping them out with certain things?
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube series, and I'll put in a video every now and then. It's making MeasureQuick easy, and it's me coming from the standpoint of I used to have a small contracting business, and we were using MeasureQuicks just for screenshots, and we were plopping them onto our reporting software, and it worked great. But there was a lot of times when I'm looking at this thing after the fact. I always reviewed my technicians' reports, and I'm like, okay, there's so much more wrong with that unit that you didn't catch. Like, you went over there and it was a contactor, but okay, our policy was you're still going to check cooling no matter what, even if it's a contactor or something electrical, and I would see it, and like there's all kinds of flags in all the screenshots, and I'm like, dude, the system's like low on gas, it's got something else going on with it, and you walked away. And you walked away with a contactor is a few $100 when we could have found something and helped these people save some energy and be a little more comfortable in their house, and maybe even sold a unit because that unit was also 12 years old. So it's like we're leaving money on the table because we have this mentality of just running and gunning. We got 10 calls to do today. That means that we just got to find it, fix it, and go. And what I'm trying to help people through my content is that we as contractors, again, you've got to change your business. We got to slow down. And I get it. We can't take care of as many customers. So dump the crappy ones and take care of the good ones, the ones that are going to help you make money. And use MeasureQuick to spend an hour and a half on your diagnosis, doing a full system diagnosis. And that's what I'm trying to help in my content. It's like, look, this is the approach that you need to take as a technician, but this is the approach that your boss better be taking. So if you're the boss and you're listening, you've got to slow things down. And when you focus on quality of calls instead of quantity, then we actually find more legit stuff wrong with systems. 90% of systems out there that MeasureQuick has in their database has a fault in it, and people walked away.
Oh yeah.
So we're leaving money on the table.
And that's a good way to explain it or just bring it up, because I've told people the same thing, right? It's like slow down, right? You're running, like you said, running and gunning. You're trying to get in and out. I have a one of our guys, he's a great tech. He does both the cooking equipment, the hot side, and then refrigeration. So he's valuable to us. But I tell him, slow down. If you get backed up, one of us will help you, because I'm more worried about, I mean, for one, the quality control, but like, did you check everything? Because like you said, you're leaving money on the table, because more times than not, that system, especially us, we work on a lot of old equipment. There's going to be several things wrong with it. It's not just the contactor. It's not just this or that, right? You need to make it right, and make that unit last, do the repair right. And then I even tell people, when you're doing maintenance or anything in general, you're working on something else, walk around, listen to things, keep your eyes open, right? Tell your customer, like, did you notice this other AC next to it is making a weird noise? There's a line that's icing up, or whatever it is. Like, a lot of times they don't even know these things, and they rely on you to do your job, basically, right? Check thoroughly that system, and then like I said, it's still ethical, because you're just telling them, you got this problem, you got that problem, what do you want to do about it?
Right. But instead, we're trying to take on as many service calls as we can as an industry for $39 fees to come out, look at the system. And
I don't get that.
Two things either happen. The dude walks away with $39 because he didn't find anything, or he is going there with the sole intent of selling a new unit because he's got to. Yeah. So Measure Quick it's a process of just slowing down and spending time doing a full system assessment, diagnostic, whatever you want to call it. And that process, like mine, it's a 70-point inspection. I mean, I am looking at everything and photo documenting everything. And I walk up to a unit in the middle of August. It's 97 degrees outside, and the compressor, I can hear it is humming, and the condenser fan motor's not running. And I can hear that. I just know that's a back capacitor. I know it's back capacitor. Still going to walk around and do a full system assessment, because I may find something else wrong with it. I'll probably find 3 things wrong with it. So
almost every time.
So we have to change that as an industry. This running and gunning, get out kind of mentality. We're not making any money. We're burning our people out. People are leaving the industry because it's incredibly stressful to have that many calls dumped on you. It's hot. It's dangerous to not just be stressed out and worn out like that. We got to start taking care of our people. So just slowing down is part of the process. And again, Measure Quick is one way we can do that.
Yeah, man. And like, Measure Quick does a lot of good, like I said. And there's stuff that you need to. So like, I've had some calls. I don't know how to segue into it, but like, I've had some calls. I've had some calls at commercial buildings. So I want to get back into the design and the whole aspect of like a bigger system. Like I mentioned earlier, doesn't always just cool better. There's humidity. There's other aspects of it that you need to take into account. I am baffled sometimes when I go into commercial buildings, because I always think like, no, they knew what they were doing, right? Like they had to have. So, because I was going to bring up like my comment section earlier. I think that's what I was trying to get to. Because I have a lot of, every time I make a joke, and I think you've seen them, the homeowners come out, they comment that we're scammers and this and that, but it's because of the bad apples that we have, right? There's bound to be some.
Right.
And I'm starting to see it a lot here in the AC systems, because there is a lot of, we picked up a commercial account maybe 2 years ago, and they have a lot of issues with cooling the building. It's a strip mall, so it's just one section of it. And like I said, that's the one that had the residential systems, or the split systems, that they got quoted for just adding another unit to it. And I'm trying to tell them that it wasn't designed right. Now I don't go in there and redesign it at the moment, right? I got to quote it out. I got to see what they want to do. But the like the one I always go back to is, they had a commercial rooftop units. They had 2. They had a back area that was never occupied. It was like an office open space area, and this is like for a restaurant, pizza chain. Never used, but that area had, like, I kid you not, like 8 to 10 vents, and that place got super cold in the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
The kitchen, on the other hand, could not keep up.
Right.
Right. So I'm like, who designed this? And I've had comments like, no, these engineers, these designers, that's what they do. They know what they're doing. I'm like, obviously not, because we have a really cold spot that is
Mhm.
like freezing, and it always shuts off because it gets cold.
Right.
And then we have the kitchen that is like super hot. It can't keep up.
Yeah.
So what we did as a temporary fix was just move some vents over to the front, and
Sure.
then put a remote sensor for the thermostat so that we can get a better
Yeah.
balanced temperature of it. But I told them, I was like, this wasn't designed for what you guys have. And I've
Right.
been seeing that more and more with a certain customer, because they have 20
Yeah.
stores.
Yeah, and I think in strip malls you get that a lot, because when the strip malls first built, they just plopped a 5-ton or whatever on the roof for that one suite, and it could have been an office, it could have been a restaurant, and then that gets rented out to 14 different businesses over the next few years, and no one really thinks about doing a load calculation HVAC design every time. They're just moving in, brand new business, they don't have any money, they're just moving in trying to get open. And so we see that a lot.
And that's a pizza place. They plopped
Yeah.
a pizza oven that gives off so much damn
Yeah,
heat
it
in the
doesn't make
kitchen
any
in the
heat.
front.
Yeah,
And it's like
right.
you had to update your HVAC, you know?
Yeah, so we see it a lot, and then I don't do much commercial anymore, and I never really did any restaurant work.
But they always give you the same thing, right? Well, it was working like that before.
Yeah, I
Like,
doubt that.
was it?
Yeah,
Was it though?
right. And that's where we need to start developing a process to quantify the BTUs that a unit's putting out. And we can take a temperature and humidity drop. We got our probes to do that. You can use Measure Quick, you can use Field Piece Testo, whatever to do that. But the kicker is airflow, and airflow's the most important thing that we should be reading as technicians and diagnosticians. But it's one of the hardest things to read accurately and efficiently, because what do you got to use? A flow hood? You're going to walk around with the flow hood while they're open? I mean, that's not. You can use an anemometer. There's a lot of room for air. You can use an anemometer. Traversing ducts, how are you going to do that with flex? So there's all these challenges to reading total airflow. But now, like, the Energy Conservatory's got the true flow grid. And so we can read total airflow. We can put it in place of the filter. We go through the process. It actually talks to Measure Quick now. And once we know airflow and we know our temperature and humidity drop, then we can figure out how many BTUs of sensible latent this unit's doing. And that's part of my process now is, okay, you've got a 3-ton unit, but it's behaving like a 2.2-ton unit. And here's why. Is it an airflow problem? Is it a refrigeration problem? Whereas before, what were we doing? We're gauging up. Okay, well, I've got 25 degrees superheat. That's a little bit high, but I don't know. Maybe it's normal. My air temperature feels okay. Maybe you just got a dry bulb thermometer. There's all these gaps in information that we didn't have. And we're just doing the best we can to try to diagnose these problems. But now it is so easy to hook up some probes to a unit and say, your 3-ton unit is operating at 3 tons. We're good to go. Now, maybe not all those 3 tons of air are going to the right places, but now we've completely removed the possibility that it is a problem with the equipment. Now we're looking at distribution. And so how much more effective are we now at diagnosing problems when we can just completely isolate one problem? It's like a low voltage short when you just start unwiring things and you say, okay, well, I know it's not my thermostat because I just unwired my thermostat and it's still popping the fuse. When we can use those methods of isolation by taking total performance airflow, then we can arrive at a more accurate diagnosis more efficiently, quicker, and those solutions go with more confidence. Because I've also done a solution where I had a bowling alley, same kind of thing, hot here, cold there. And I didn't have any of those tools at my disposal. It was years and years ago. And so they spent a couple of grand on some ductwork modifications. Didn't help. I was guessing.
I thought you were gonna.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say you fixed it.
No, it didn't. It was still. I mean, it helped a little bit, but I didn't have any way to quantify it.
It's hard because all that stuff. There's a lot that goes into it. Because like I'm learning that now that I'm starting to see these certain buildings, like you said, strip malls are the worst. That's all we have with this one customer. Yeah. They have like 20 locations, all strip malls. And I'm starting to figure out, like, and I told them that before. I'm like, I mean, they've probably been there for a really long time because it's a well-known chain. But
Mhm.
like, what was it before you guys got there? Right? It could have been a different
Right.
type of
Yeah.
building. I mean, a business. Like it could have been just an office, open area, whatever it was.
Mhm.
And I'm starting to get into that more now because I'm like, well, now I got to start looking at ductwork design. Like you said, have the right tools to kind of check. But even then, like I don't have an anemometer, but I've thought of buying one. And then I'm like, like, you know, those little ones. I'm like, I don't know if it's like you said, there's room for error. I don't
Yeah.
know how well, you know, we can do things with that. So, but I've
Yeah.
been more open to it and kind of looking into like, how can we fix more of these duct and sizing design issues? Cause we have a lot of that we're seeing now.
Yeah. And so I get it. The true flow grid's expensive. An anemometer is a little bit more affordable, but you got to go to every single register. How do you do ceiling grills? You can't. So you got to get a flow hood. Flow hoods are incredibly expensive. So one thing that I'm just for contractors to get started with checking airflow is checking total static pressure. And this guy right here, the TEC DG8, one of the best bangs for the buck. There's several good micromanometers out there that are pretty affordable. This is one of them,
I
and
think I've seen you show that or talk
yeah,
about that one.
yeah. And so I've really gotten to be pretty close to Chris Hughes, who works there. He's a former contractor. He's been in the trenches like us. He works for them now. They're an
Yeah.
airflow testing company, but that taking any kind, if it's not the DG8, fine. You actually can use the $100 manometer that you get from the supply house. Start checking static pressure against your blower charts. And if you need help doing that, I got videos out there doing it. There's plenty of content on how to take your static pressure, where to put your probes, make sure you're taking an accurate reading, and then how to read that with a blower chart. With commercial systems, it's a little bit trickier because you could have a belt-driven pulley and you don't really know what the RPMs of that fan is. So there's an extra step. You may have to get a tachometer to figure out how fast that fan pulley's going, and then but all the literature is there to be able to convert static pressure into airflow. And even if it's not diffuser to diffuser airflow, even total airflow, if you just know if this thing is moving
Yeah.
anywhere close to 350, 400 CFMs per ton, then you can either pursue that further or you can set that aside and say, I don't think that's the problem. It's going to be something else. So airflow testing and start with static pressure. If you can't do anything else, you can get started with static pressure pretty cheap.
Yeah. I've started doing more of that now. Throughout the last few years because and I
Mhm.
did a little bit of it in the middle of my career because I've been doing it like 16 years. I was always a refrigeration tech. So I did like walk-in boxes and stuff
Yep.
like that. Then they started asking me to check out their HVAC systems, right? They're like, well, you know,
Yep.
you're already here, you do the same
Right.
thing. And we had to deal with certain things and I never understood it before when I started, right?
Yeah.
Like why am I getting condensation on the vents?
Right.
You know, all these weird humidity issues.
Yep.
Why is it so stuffy in here?
Yep.
There's a lot of science in it, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to get into it more and like more now with the that's one thing that I've been checking now is a static pressure.
Yep.
I just want to get into more like a airflow and checking the vents and making sure we have the
Yeah.
CFMs and all that. Because like
Yep.
I've been seeing some weird things lately, like where it's like it's working. You think the system's working, it looks good, everything is checking out fine in the system, the refrigerant part,
Yep.
and then like you go in there and it still doesn't feel comfortable. Like there's other
Yeah.
issues.
Right. And there are so many when you get into comfort cooling, there are so many things you got to think about that just
Yeah,
refrigeration guys really know their refrigeration cycle really well.
yeah,
Whereas comfort cooling guys sometimes don't. But refrigeration guys, once you get outside of that and you're dealing with airflow problems, they're like,
it's a lot.
I don't know,
It's a lot of
psychrometrics.
factors.
But
Yeah,
really, and that's what I'm trying to get more involved with is that diagnosis. And with residential, again, I just can speak more residential because that's the world that I'm in now. But with same kind of problems, you go into a
yeah, it
house,
applies. It
yeah,
applies to the
same thing.
same.
It's like, okay, well, if the first thing you do is gauge up and you're like, well, my pressures look good,
Yeah,
then you're cutting out a complete, like three-quarters of the problem you're not even looking at. So um, when we're thinking about comfort problems, especially humidity problems, return duct leakage is a huge problem, especially
Oh
when the
yeah.
return ducts are in attics, but also when they're in crawl spaces. And so one test that I started doing is, and you can actually do this test, I think just with the Field Piece app, you don't necessarily have to do Measure Quick, but if you take your dew point reading of the air at your return grill in the space, dew point measures how much actual moisture is in the air. It's the same thing as grains of moisture on the psychrometric chart. It's just on the other side of the chart. So what I tell people is, like, dew point is how much moisture is in the air. If you take that reading, dew point is not affected by temperature. It could care less
Yeah.
how what the temperature is, as long as we're not below the dew point. But if you check your dew point at the return grill, and then we take that same probe and we go to the return plenum of the unit and we check dew point again. If our dew point has changed in any way,
Mm,
we picked up moisture or we lost moisture, depending on which way it
yeah.
went. It has return or relative humidity can fool you because you're dealing with temperature difference. Maybe it's a hot attic, duct picked up a few degrees. The dew point does not lie. And if you check your return grill dew point versus your return plenum dew point, you can find out, goodness, I just picked up 6, 7, 10 degrees of dew point. I've got a return leak somewhere. And so I'm bringing in all this heat and humidity in my unit, and it's doing the best it can. But by the time the air leaves it, it's just not cool or dry enough to condition the space. And when we can start, just simple tests like that are just so
Yeah,
easy and quick.
the leakage is a big issue too that I've been seeing,
Yeah.
because I've been out to some where like the previous company couldn't figure out something, and then I get into the attic because it's like a
Yeah.
drop ceiling commercial. I have to get up there and then get,
Yeah.
figure it out, and then I'm like, you're losing so much air, you're taking in hot air,
Yeah.
and we got to get all this fixed first, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be just a new unit or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And so unfortunately that happens so many times where we just get fixated on the appliance, the box. It's like we just want to diagnose the unit, put gauges on it, check the refrigerant levels, and
Yeah,
we
because
don't think outside of it.
I work on a lot of old equipment. I usually don't think automatically like new unit, right? Not unless it's like
Yeah.
falling apart. Because I'm like,
Right.
if it's in good condition, we can make it work. It's just like what
Yeah.
other factors are causing your issue.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing when the owner says, well, it was working before and now it's not. And I mean,
Yeah,
if you can trust your owner or the owner of the building or the operator, whoever's there, the occupant, then that's a great tool. It's like, well, did it ever work? And then you gotta have to figure out whether they're telling you the truth or not.
yeah.
But I
Just take it
like
with a grain
asking
of
that
salt.
question before I start working on it, because if you ask a question afterwards, after there's been problems and maybe they're not 100% satisfied, you may get a wrong answer. But if you show up and before you even start doing anything, it's like, was there ever a time when you were comfortable in this house in the middle of summer, middle of winter, and that you haven't done any work? They want to help you solve this thing. They're probably going to be less likely to hide it from you, and so that's good information. Occupants are there in that building day in, day out. When you can utilize that in the right circumstances, because they're going to know stuff that you're not going to be able to pick up on just as a tech
Yeah,
showing up for the
that
first time or every now
that's
and
a
then.
big part of it. I tell people like, ask those questions when you get there, or try to figure out the story to it, because
Yep.
like in commercial, I go to the cooks or the people that are
Hmm.
handling whatever equipment, because they're going to be the first ones to complain like, oh, it wasn't working for like 2 weeks, or
Yeah.
it broke down today, or whatever it may be. And then you tell them like, well, what, tell me more, or get the conversation
Hmm.
going, and then they help you solve, or kind of cut to the problem
Yep.
more times than not, if you just have a
Yeah.
good open
Yep.
conversation with them.
That's right. I used to do work on laser cutter chillers, like at metal fabrication places. So the stuff that cuts out the stamps that you know makes
Yeah,
all kinds of stuff made out of metal, and those things generate a lot of heat. And so they have a chiller that's attached to that laser cutter. They talk to each other via PLC. So I'd go over there, and same thing. The laser cutter operator, he knows nothing about refrigeration, air conditioning. He knows nothing. He just knows that it does this when I do that, and it does this at this time of the day. And when I was younger and sort of more cocky, I was just like, man, this dude doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just wasting my time. Like, yeah, all right, man, I'll figure it out. And 14 callbacks later, I started to realize that maybe I should pay attention, because that dude is working day in, day out on it. That machine is an extension of his anatomy,
Yeah.
and he knows what's going on. And same thing with homeowners. Homeowners, especially people work more from home now. They're home all the time. They know when the weird smells happen and the rattle and the weird comfort problems, and listen to them. But ask those questions early before they become biased.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Good stuff.
I feel like we can go on and on about a lot of these
Yeah.
talking points I have here, but
Yeah.
we're over an hour. I don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah.
I know you're on YouTube, you're on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and leave everything I can in the description so people can find you, because I enjoy the content you put out, because it's very informative,
Thank you.
and it's stuff that I'm not particularly good at, and it's stuff that
Yeah.
I feel like that stuff, like you said, it's kind of hard to get good training on.
Yeah.
Air quality and the design aspect of it and all that. So if you guys, anybody listening, watching, wants to go check out Tim, I'll leave all the stuff in the show notes, description, all that good stuff. Is there anything you want to leave on before we
Yes,
get out of
I
here?
do. And I am trying to find a website. So back in the symposium, we started the Better HVAC movement, and it's
Okay.
now starting to become more of a reality. There's a website. I'm finding the website right now.
Tell us more. I
But
don't think I
yeah,
heard about that.
yeah, it's brand new. And what Better HVAC is a movement where we're gonna get the good guys together, where we can learn from each other and where we can support each other, get the education that we need. People that want to be good players in the industry, they have a place where they can get that education. But also, it is a place for, in the residential space, the homeowner to be able to also get educated, because that's a part of this thing, is that unfortunately our homeowners are being educated by the bad guys, by the bad players. And so we want to try to change it so then they appreciate the value of people that want to come in and diagnose things the right way, using building science, using ethical sales, science-based indoor air quality. And so the website is betterhvac.org. And so you can take a pledge as a contractor, as a professional, that you're going to educate yourself, you're going to attend events that support that. And then that eventually, when that gets built out, homeowners will be able to find you. And so betterhvac.org is supported by Jim Bergman, MeasureQuick, Bill Spohn, True Tech Tools, people at Haven, Kevin Hart. These are the good guys, and they are using their limited resources towards something really important. So you can reach me at Tim Stasio HVAC. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, same handle for all three. Tim Stasio at LinkedIn. There is a space between the DE and the S in Stasio, so it's DE space Stasio. But please also check out betterhvac.org. I want as many people as possible to become the good guys.
So that's it sounds like a community type of deal.
It is. It's sort of think about it as a community that is involved with HVAC training symposium, HVAC school.
Yeah. Okay.
The same people are going to be found there. And so this is unfortunately going to be good guys versus bad guys pretty soon, with venture capital buying up companies and just turning technicians and good people into liars. We may not be able to change that, but we can create a pocket where the good guys can thrive and succeed and be profitable and successful. So just take a look at that. And then this is the companies I mentioned: MeasureQuick, Haven, the Andrew Conservatory, Conduit Tech, being able to do a load calculation in 7 minutes on your iPad by scanning the house. These are
that's the other one I
guys. Yeah, check them out. They're good people. They're good companies. They're doing things for the right reasons. And let's create that community where we can succeed the right way. So thank you for having me on. I really appreciate you getting a chance to riff with you. And yeah, you're right. We could talk about this stuff for hours.
Yeah. I had to start cutting my shows down, because I could talk for like 2 hours or so. And I'm like, I need to cut this down. So I try to time manage a little bit better. But if anything, man, we can do this again. I really appreciate you coming on and chopping it up here and talking about all the things that we talked about. I think it was
Yeah.
very informative. There's a lot of viewers that are residential. The guys that do industrial get a kick out of you starting out in that field too. So appreciate you for coming on, man.
Man, awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody watching and listening, I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you all next time.